My friend confessed her love for me. After rejecting me and escaping from her abusive boyfriend. But I rejected her and told her I was no longer interested. When she asked me if it was for revenge. Everything started 2 weeks ago. When Beth showed up at my door. I'm Mark, 30 years old. I work as a financial director at a medium-sized tech company in Boston. Beth, 28 years old, and I met about 3 years ago. Through a recreational volleyball league. Our team practiced twice a week and we played matches on the weekends. That's how our group of friends formed. We were 8. Who stayed together after each practice. Having drinks or dinner. Among us was Richard, 30 years old. Who worked as a corporate lawyer. From the moment I met Beth, she caught my attention. She had something special, not just in her appearance. But also in the energy she brought to everything. She was a high school science teacher. Passionate about her job. And always had stories about her students that made us laugh. After practices, Beth was the one who talked the most in our group. Richard also seemed interested in her from the beginning. He always sat next to her when we went out. And made sure to walk her to her car. During that first year, our group became very close. We celebrated birthdays together. Helped each other move apartments. Even took a weekend trip to Cape Cod. During that time, my initial attraction to Beth turned into something deeper. I found myself thinking about her during work meetings. Or while grocery shopping. We texted regularly about random things. Like a funny dog she saw on her way to work, a new restaurant she wanted to try. Or book or TV show recommendations. After about 1.5 years of knowing Beth, I decided to tell her how I felt. It wasn't an easy decision. The idea of changing our friendship kept me up at night. And if she said no, things would become awkward between us. Would this affect the entire friend group? These questions kept spinning in my head for weeks. One night, after practice, I asked Beth if she wanted to grab a coffee, just the two of us. We went to a small place near the gym. I told Beth that my feelings for her had grown beyond friendship. And I wanted to know if she would consider going out with me on a real date. She said she really valued our friendship, but didn't have that kind of feeling for me. She added that she wasn't looking for a relationship at the moment, because she was focused on the possibility of applying to a master's program. The rejection hurt, but I respected her decision. Over the following weeks, I made sure not to act differently with her. We continued with our regular volleyball practices, group outings, and text exchanges. Little by little, the pain of rejection faded, and I focused on moving on. Then, less than 2 months after rejecting me, Beth started dating Richard. I found out when they arrived, holding hands at our Friday night gathering. Everyone else seemed happy for them, offering congratulations, while I wasn't so thrilled. After our talk, it wasn't just about her dating someone else. It was that she had specifically said she didn't want a relationship at the time. Seeing them together made me realize that her rejection wasn't about timing or priorities. She simply wasn't interested in me specifically. Something changed inside me at that moment. The feelings I had for Beth disappeared, not out of resentment or anger, but because a fundamental requirement for my romantic interest is mutual enthusiasm. Without that reciprocity, those feelings had nowhere to go. Despite this realization, I remained friends with Beth and Richard. I genuinely wanted Beth to be happy. And if Richard made her happy, I supported it. We kept our regular volleyball practices. Though I started missing some. Due to growing responsibilities. At work after my promotion. Beth and I continued texting. Regularly, joking and sharing stories. She even became close friends with my sister Anna. They started going shopping together and meeting for lunch every couple of weeks. I was glad they connected. Anna had recently moved to Boston and needed friends in the city. A few months ago, Beth and Richard broke up. The news surprised everyone in our group because they always seemed like the perfect couple. Richard was the first to stop coming to our gatherings. And Beth also started showing up less frequently. When she did, she seemed quieter. Less like herself. It wasn't until 3 weeks ago that I learned the truth. Anna told me everything. Beth had shown her pictures of bruises on her arms and back. Richard had been abusive, not just physically, but also emotionally. Beth criticized her constantly, checked her phone, and isolated her from her friends. Richard, whom I had known for years, who joked with us and helped everyone move, had been hurting Beth behind closed doors. After this revelation, Beth started spending more time at my place and with Anna. We tried to support her without pressuring her too much. She seemed to be gradually improving, though I thought she probably needed professional help to process everything that had happened. 2 weeks ago, Beth came to my apartment. We opened a bottle of wine and talked about unimportant things. A new show on Netflix. The upcoming volleyball season, the weather. My kitchen is small. There's barely enough space for 2 people to stand without bumping into each other. We were laughing about something when Beth leaned in and kissed me. The kiss didn't last long before I pulled away. I made a joke about the wine being stronger than expected. Beth laughed too, saying it must have been the alcohol. She left shortly afterward, saying she needed to prepare her lesson plans for the next day. The next morning, Beth showed up at my door again. Her eyes were red, and she asked if we could talk. Sitting on my couch, she told me that she was in love with me, and had been for months. Beth wanted us to start the relationship that we should have had from the beginning. Beth explained that when Richard first asked her out, she initially told him no. But he insisted. He sent flowers to her school, showed up at her apartment with takeout from her favorite restaurant, until she finally agreed to a date. Beth described how she felt pressured into the relationship. Beth believed that if Richard hadn't pushed so hard, she and I eventually would have ended up together. I listened to everything she said, feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't decipher. When she finished, I told her that although I cared about her deeply as a friend, I no longer had romantic feelings for her. The idea of dating her just didn't excite me in the way it once did. Beth's face collapsed. She asked if I was rejecting her to get revenge for her rejecting me years ago. I assured her that wasn't the case, though privately I acknowledged that her initial rejection had fundamentally changed the way I saw her. My romantic feelings disappeared when I realized she didn't share them, and they never came back. It wasn't about revenge. It was about my need for mutual enthusiasm from the beginning. Beth left my apartment devastated that night. Anna called me, angry that I had rejected Beth. She insisted that Beth was my perfect match and that I was being petty and vindictive. Anna said that Beth had been manipulated by Richard, whom she called a textbook narcissist. And now I was punishing Beth for something that wasn't her fault. The next day, Beth sent me a message saying that she needed time and space. She suggested that maybe we should stop seeing each other altogether. This frustrated me, because when she rejected me years ago, I had made the effort to preserve our friendship despite my hurt feelings. I still value Beth as a friend and hope that eventually we can return to that relationship. I decided to give her the space she asked for, but I plan to reach out when things settle down. First, however, I need to talk to Anna about boundaries and ask her not to be part of the situation. Update 1. This would be a 2-week update. The day after my original post, I met up with Anna for brunch. I showed her the Reddit thread on my phone, and she read it silently while I finished my omelette. When she finished reading, she put down the phone and apologized. Anna admitted that it wasn't her place to interfere and promised to support whatever decision I made. She even agreed with many of the comments that suggested some distance between Beth and me might be best right now. The conversation with Anna went better than I expected, and I felt relieved that at least one source of tension had been resolved. Following the advice of many of you and my own instincts, I decided to keep my distance from Beth for now. I didn't text or call her, giving both of us space to process everything that had happened. A week after the meeting with Anna, I went to a friend's housewarming party in Cambridge. The apartment was packed with people. The music was loud, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. Around midnight, I decided to head home because I was tired after a pretty long week at work. When I arrived at my building, the front desk attendant told me that someone named Beth was waiting for me. Confused, I agreed to let her up, wondering what could be so urgent that she needed to see me at midnight. Beth looked better than she had in months. Her eyes were brighter, and she smiled widely when she saw me. She hugged me, saying that she missed me and wanted to spend some time together. Beth explained that she had seen my Instagram story from the party and had asked our mutual friend where it was. When she found out I had left early, she decided to come over. After Beth left my apartment following our night together, I implemented a strict no-contact rule. 2 days later, she sent me a message asking if she could come talk. I replied that I didn't think it was a good idea and reiterated that we needed time apart for the foreseeable future. Beth sent several more messages after that. First saying that she understood, then explaining how good we would be together, and finally claiming that I was making a mistake by pushing her away. I didn't respond to any of these messages, and eventually, they stopped coming. During this time, I sadly accepted that our friendship had probably ended permanently. Although that realization caused me some sadness, I felt it was necessary for both of us to move forward and find happiness elsewhere. At work, I've been collaborating closely with a legal consultant named Julia, 29 years old, on a major acquisition deal over the past year. Julia is brilliant, driven, and has a sharp sense of humor that makes even the most tedious contract reviews bearable. Over the months of working together, I developed strong feelings for her, although I never acted on them due to our professional relationship. Months ago, I tried to ask Julia out for coffee, but she politely declined, saying it wouldn't be appropriate while we were still working on the deal together. I completely respected her boundaries and agreed. 2 weeks ago, we finally closed the acquisition deal. The second the announcement email was sent to the company, I asked Julia if she'd like to have dinner to celebrate. She smiled and said yes immediately. As if she had been waiting for that moment too. Our first date was amazing. The conversation flowed naturally. From work to our personal lives. Interests, and goals. Julia. She mentioned that she had talked about me to her friends. Months ago, which surprised me. Because I had also done the same with my friends. About her. We both laughed about how hard it was working together. While being attracted to one another. The date ended with Julia coming back to my apartment. The connection between us felt natural and mutual. Something that had been missing with Beth. 2 days later, Julia called me, sounding upset. She asked if we could meet for coffee. Right away. When I arrived at the cafe, Julia looked stressed and pushed her phone toward me across the table. On the screen was a LinkedIn message from Beth. She had somehow found out about Julia and me. Her initial message to Julia mentioned that she knew we were seeing each other. Beth claimed that she and I were in a complicated and turbulent phase of our relationship. When Julia didn't respond, Beth sent another message accusing me of manipulating women. Of being someone who seriously dates women. Only to seek his next conquest and hurt the women who develop feelings for me. Julia was understandably shaken by these messages. She told me that she liked me. But hesitated to get involved in what seemed like relationship drama. She suggested that we stop seeing each other before things got more serious. Desperate not to lose Julia over false accusations, I explained the entire story with Beth. I showed her my previous Reddit post, which, in her opinion as a lawyer, seemed like documentation of a case. From the beginning. After reading everything, Julia agreed to keep seeing me. Though I could tell the incident had shaken her confidence in our budding relationship. This attempt by Beth to sabotage my relationship with Julia enraged me. For a moment, I considered confronting Beth and saying things I knew would hurt her. However, I've never been the kind of person who seeks revenge, even when provoked. Instead, both Julia and I blocked Beth on all social media and communication channels. I called Anna to inform her of what had happened. And she too was shocked by Beth's behavior. Anna assured me that she no longer had contact with Beth. Which I believed. I deactivated most of my social media accounts, keeping only LinkedIn for professional reasons. Looking back, many of the commenters on my previous posts warned me that Beth could be manipulative or potentially unstable, and I dismissed those concerns. Now I understand that they saw something I didn't. Blinded by our years of friendship. If Beth tries to contact me again, I will handle the situation differently. With clear and appropriate boundaries. Part of me wonders if Beth's relationship with Richard affected her more deeply than any of us realized. Maybe being in an abusive relationship taught her unhealthy behavioral patterns. Although I'm angry about her actions, I remember the Beth I met years ago. Kind, funny, passionate about teaching, and I recognize how much she has changed. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update. And I wanted to share how things have been resolved. After Beth tried to interfere in my relationship with Julia. We didn't hear from her for about a month. Then she started showing up in places where she knew I might be. She appeared at the cafe near my office during lunch hour, at the gym I go to, and even at a restaurant where I was having dinner with work colleagues. Each time, I avoided interaction and left as quickly as possible. These coincidental encounters happened 5 times before I decided that it was necessary to take more direct action. I consulted with a lawyer, who advised me to send Beth a formal letter requesting no contact. The letter made it clear that I did not wish to communicate with her in any way, and that future attempts at contact or showing up at places where I might be would be considered harassment. 2 days after the letter was delivered, Beth sent a long email to both Julia and me. In it, she apologized for her behavior and claimed that she had started therapy to deal with the aftermath of her relationship with Richard. She wrote that she now recognized her actions had been inappropriate and promised to respect our boundaries moving forward. I didn't respond to the email, following my lawyer's advice. Julia and I discussed it and decided to maintain our no-contact stance with Beth. Even though the apology seemed sincere, the damage was too great to consider renewing any kind of relationship. Anna briefly reconnected with Beth after the apology email. According to Anna, Beth genuinely regrets her actions and is working through some serious issues stemming from her relationship with Richard. Anna and Beth met for coffee once, but Anna chose not to continue the friendship, feeling that it would be a betrayal of me and potentially complicated, given the history. Our volleyball group gradually dissolved. After all this drama, some friends sided with me, others with Beth, and some distanced themselves from both, uncomfortable with the situation. Sometimes I miss those friendships, but I understand why things happened this way. Besides, friendships change over time. Julia and I have been steadily dating for the past few months. The relationship has progressed naturally, and I like it that way, because there are no complications beyond the usual. Recently, we decided to move in together when my lease ends in the next few months. As for Richard, I found out through mutual connections that he moved to Chicago for a new job. No one from our old group of friends keeps in touch with him, and apparently Beth filed a police report documenting the abuse. Although she chose not to press charges, I've had time to reflect on everything that happened. The incident with Beth taught me valuable lessons about maintaining clear boundaries and recognizing when a friendship has run its course. Although I no longer hold resentment toward Beth, I have no desire to reconnect with her. Not even on a friendship level. Anna and I have grown closer through all of this. She's become a trusted confidant. And her relationship with Julia is also going really well. We have dinner together every week. And I feel like we're building a new and healthier social circle. In the end, this experience showed me that sometimes the hardest decisions, like cutting ties with someone who was once important in your life, are necessary for your well-being. Moving on means leaving certain things behind, even when doing so is painful. I'm grateful for the life I'm building now, with people who respect boundaries and communicate openly. I want to thank everyone who offered advice and support during this difficult situation. You were there when I needed guidance the most. And for that, I will always be thankful. And I want to say this partly because I don't know if this will be my last update or not. Update 4. Life is strange sometimes, because I ran into Richard at an event I was sent to by my company in another state. It was odd seeing him there, especially because I was cornered by him at the bar. which made it hard to escape. But if I hadn't stayed, I wouldn't know today. His version of what happened years ago with Beth. We talked a bit, a cordial conversation. Until he asked about Beth and the friend group. I replied that he shouldn't be asking about Beth after what he did to her. He looked confused. So I began to give him details. Until he told me that none of it had happened. His version is that Beth was unfaithful, and he ended the relationship. He didn't even know what Beth had been saying about him. Or that Beth had filed a report. But chose not to press charges. Not even the police had come looking for him where he had moved. I asked him about the marks on Beth's body. And he said she could have made them herself. That she was capable of lying about something like that. Or that it could have been a lover. But that he had never laid a hand on her. We talked about a few more things and said goodbye. As it was his last night there. Because he had to return early the next day for a project. I stayed until the event ended. But I kept thinking a lot about this. Beth's behavior could explain Richard's version. But Beth's version, being abused, could also make sense. Like a kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. I talked to my sister about it, and she doesn't know what to think either. Still, in these 2.5 years, we haven't spoken to Beth. And in any case, the truth matters very little now. No, it's not that knowing the truth about Richard would change anything. I no longer had feelings for her in that way. And it's not like I would have started having them if I knew she had been unfaithful. Quite the opposite. But this was too big a secret to keep from all of you, who during this time have written many theories. And since I'm here, I'll also give a quick update on my life. Now it's been almost 3 years of relationship with Julia. And almost 2 years of living together. Which makes me feel like everything turned out better than expected.